Howdy everybody, Dr. Andy Woods here. I'm the pastor teacher here at Sugarland Bible Church. This is Pastor's Point of View number 355. This is being released May the 23rd, 2025. We have a prophecy update for you today. Here is our preview slide, and we're going to, in this session, look at three things. I want to update you on some things that have happened of late concerning Mark of the Beast technology. I want to update you also on some major happenings pushing us into the whole arena of global religiosity, which is one of the key signs of the end of the age. And we want to conclude by making some comments about the potential decline that the United States of America is being put under related to the pressure that the Trump administration is experiencing at the hands of life-tenured, unelected judges trying to put our president in a metaphorical set of handcuffs, preventing him from fulfilling his executive functions. So let's go ahead and start off with Mark of the Beast technology. Our biblical entry point when we talk about this subject is the famous Mark of the Beast passage in Revelation 13, 16 through 18. And here's what it says. It says, "And he," that's the false prophet, "causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on." Now that word "on" is a big deal, as you'll see in a minute. It's the Greek word epi, preposition meaning upon. It's not the word for underneath. If it were underneath the skin or the hand, a different word entirely would be used in Greek called uper, as in hypodermic. But it doesn't say under, it says on. To be given a mark on their right hand or their forehead, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. For the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. You know, this whole frightening scenario where you can't participate in the global economy unless you receive some kind of mark on your right hand or your forehead. I mean, we're living in a time period where the technology is consistent with that prophecy. You know, we now have technology that's moving us in the direction of this system. And even if some of the things that I'll describe don't fit this perfectly, we can clearly see that technology is not moving away from what John wrote 2,000 years ago in the book of Revelation, but it is moving in the direction of what John wrote in the Bible 2,000 years ago. So with that being said, let me bring your attention to a man named Sam Altman. I have had on this broadcast a lot of positive things to say about the Trump administration. I think there's a lot of good happening there with Trump's executive orders. But, you know, it's interesting. Satan into anyone and any administration always has a back door. And this, apparently Trump has some kind of alliance with this Sam Altman. And Sam Altman is really on the cutting edge of certain areas of technology, which to me, whether he knows it or not, looks like he's putting into place the framework and the foundation for the Mark of the Beast system. So notice this particular article from Wired, April 30th, 2025. The title of this is "Sam Altman's Eye-Scanning Orb is Now Coming to the United States." At a buzzy event in San Francisco, World announced a series of Apple-like stores, a partnership with a dating giant Match Group, and a new mini gadget to scan your eyeballs. And here's what the article says. It says, Sam Altman's Iris scanning, identifying verification technology startup says it will begin expanding to the U.S. starting May the 1st and will launch a phone-like hardware device by next year. The device and app combo scans people's irises, creates a unique user ID, stores that information on the blockchain, and uses it as a form of identification verification. If enough people adopt the app globally, the thinking goes, it could become it could ostensibly thwart scammers. The article goes on and it says the bizarre identity verification process requires that users get their eyeballs scanned. So Tools for Humanity is expanding its physical footprint to make that a possibility. So, boy, what do you need cash for? What do you need identification for? All you do is get your iris scan and you put your eyeball up to the system and you're in. You can participate in the economy of the world. Now, is this exactly what Revelation 13 says? No, but it's part of the technological evolution in the direction of Revelation 13. All of this is promoted as convenience. Think how convenient it would be. It's promoted, as the article indicates, that it's going to stop fraud and scammers, and I'm sure all that stuff is true. But the more you move into this cashless sort of digitized system where you're recognized by the irises in your eyeballs, etc., the more personal privacy seems to disappear. And the more there's some kind of electronic database on your traveling, your purchasing behavior, and the more it's easy for that technology one day to fall into the wrong hands, which biblically we know it will, and they would abuse that system to keep people that are politically incorrect or have a biblical orientation out of the economy, and the easier it is for them to implement, what we would call a social credit score system. Where the more compliant you are with the government narrative, the more privileges you have in the economy. The more you can put your kids into the best schools, the more you have better credit, the more you can get the loan for your business or your job, your traveling privileges increase, passport privileges increase. But the more you're reading books and going to churches and listening to things and saying things on social media and not recycling or whatever, the more your opportunities in life shrink. And you're sort of put into an electronic concentration camp. I mean, that's what the social credit score system is. This is how the Chinese Communist Party, who has implemented a social credit score system, is able to control its massive population. I think the Altman eye scanning orb now being introduced into the U.S. pushes us in the direction of the potential for that kind of system, and not away from it. Now, I said a little earlier, we have another screenshot, by the way, from Remnant News, just showing you this eyeball scanning orbs arrive in none other place than Nashville. And it just puts there at the bottom a question mark. Is this a step towards the beast system? I would say that it is, whether the technocrats understand it as such or not. I have a lot of older commentaries on my shelves of the book of Revelation in my office and in my home. I have commentaries on the book of Revelation going back over 100 years or more. And it's interesting to watch commentators try to make sense of Revelation 13 verses 16 through 18. I mean, they'll say stuff like, well, this couldn't be literal. So they start to spiritualize it or allegorize it, but there's no reason, as we've learned, to take it in any way other than literal. because we see the technology for that kind of system is now in place. In other words, the whole mark of the beast scenario is now extremely credible, which shows you how fast we're moving into eventually the 7-year tribulation period and the rapture of the church, which precedes the 7-year tribulation period. These things, prophetic things, are coming upon us very, very quickly. Now, a little earlier I talked about how the Greek indicates that the mark will be epi upon the skin, we think, the right hand or the forehead, some sort of tattoo. Well, it's interesting how tattoos are being now used to interact with technology. This is a blog piece from Eusebio Robledo, dated March the 7th, 2025, and it says, "The future of tattoos, a fusion of art and technology." In other words, when someone gets a tattoo, there could be a lot more to it than just skin decor or whatever. It marries you to technology. It marries you to the surveillance system, which is exactly what Revelation 13, 16 through 18 seems to be indicating. A few excerpts from this Substack blog piece. It says, from bioluminescent designs to smart tattoos that interact with technology, the next generation of tattoos is set to redefine personal expression in groundbreaking ways. Smart tattoos, the rise of interactive ink. It says this: these future tattoos could function as wearable technology, eliminating the need for smartwatches and fitness trackers. Some potential applications include the following: health monitoring. Smart tattoos can track vital signs such as heart rate, hydration levels, glucose levels for diabetics, sending real-time data to a smartphone. Data storage and security. Future tattoos could store encrypted personal data, acting as an alternative to ID cards or passwords. Bioluminescent and color-changing tattoos. Advancements in biochemistry and nanotechnology have led to the possibility of bioluminescent tattoos which glow in the dark or react to body temperature changes. Three-dimensional printed and haptic tattoos. Additionally, haptic tattoos could enable sensory feedback, allowing users to feel vibrations or touch-based signals through tattoos, which could revolutionize communication for people with sensory impairments. Tattoo removal and modification of nanotechnology. While tattoo removal has traditionally been painful and an expensive process, future advancements may include self-fading ink or nanotechnology-infused designs that can easily be modified or erased. Users could change their tattoos with a simple electromagnetic pulse or a light-based treatment, providing greater flexibility in body art. Ethical and cultural considerations. As tattoos become more integrated with technology, ethical concerns arise. And here are some of my concerns. Privacy and security must be addressed, especially with tattoos that store or transmit personal data. Fascinating article demonstrating what can be done just by putting something very simple on the skin, how it can marry you to technology, the internet, vital body signs, health issues, databases, etc. Now, again, I'll just pose the question: is this type of tattoo technology moving us away from the mark of the beast system or towards it? It's moving us towards it, quite obviously. And so this becomes one of the many signs that we can look at indicating and revealing the unique messianic time period that we are living in. I don't mean to rant and rave about this or harp on this or be legalistic about it, but the whole idea of getting a tattoo, when I was coming of age, junior high school, elementary school, etc., to me it was a rarity when someone got a tattoo. And I'm not a legalist on this. I mean, there are good people that have tattoos. Sometimes they're Bible verses, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not condemning anybody. What I'm saying is today you have an entire younger generation that has tattoos. I mean, it's almost like if you're part of that generation and you don't have a tattoo, you're sort of out of the ordinary. And only reason I bring this up is not for purposes of legalistic condemnation. It's just to show you how we're being desensitized culturally, generationally to tattoos. And this is going to fit perfectly with this technology that I'm trying to describe. And that in turn is going to fit perfectly ultimately with the mark of the beast system. It's a sort of a cultural desensitizing, and it's being promoted in terms of convenience and look at all of the benefits, which obviously there are many. And humanity is sort of gradually being inched along, pushed along into the very credible scenario, Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18. You don't have to strain or struggle any longer to see how these prophecies can come to pass. They can come to pass very, very quickly and very, very easily. Let's switch subjects to our second area, which is highly related, and it has to do with global religion. We know that a global religion is coming. We know that from Revelation 17 and verse 15, where it describes the harlot influencing the world. It says there, and he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Now, when a harlot is used as an image or a symbol, as it's being done here, it always invariably refers to false religion in the Bible. The Bible uses harlot imagery to describe false religion. And when it says this harlot is going to sit on many waters, and this image defines what the waters are: peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, 4 nouns. And when you study out those same 4 nouns used anywhere else in the book of Revelation, it refers to the whole world. These are the same nouns used to describe those for whom Christ died in Revelation 5, verse 9, same book, which is communicating universality. My point is, when you see that imagery and harlot imagery together, it's talking about a global religion that is going to encompass the entire world. The global religion is the third leg of the 3-legged stool of the New World Order. You got to have all 3 to have the New World Order. You've got to have an economic angle, you've got to have a political angle, and you've got to have a religious angle. You've got to have a way to tie all the religions of the world into one and sort of act like all of these religions are teaching the same thing. And it really doesn't matter what path you pursue. All roads lead to the same place, allegedly. And so the only sin in that system is absolutism and saying that your way is the only way. Other than that, everybody's going the same place, whether they're Buddhist, Islam, atheist, humanist, Mormon, whatever. We're all going to the same place as long as you're sincere. That whole fabric, that whole tapestry is being constructed as we speak. To give you some evidence of that, let me take you to this article here. It's a Mormon article from the churchofjesuschrist.org, a newsroom, churchofjesuschrist.org. Again, a recent article, as is all these articles that I've been sharing. It says in April 28th, it says, in the Salt Lake Tabernacle, faiths unite through music and dance, photos from the 2025 evening of sacred music. And here's what the article says. The iconic Salt Lake Tabernacle resonated with the unifying power of faith on Sunday, April 27th, 2025, as hundreds from diverse religious backgrounds gathered to celebrate the power of faith through music and dance. This event, titled Sacred Music Evening, Many Faiths, One Family, is sponsored by the Salt Lake Interfaith Roundtable. This year's performances were, among the Mormon contributors, the Salt Lake Buddhist Temple. And then it says an individual of Emerald Hills Institute opened the evening with a Muslim call to prayer. Rabbi Bachman and Jeremy Lappin followed with a Jewish shofar devotion. And then you had an imam of the Utah Islamic Center offered the invocation. The gathering concluded with a prayer from an individual from Sing of Utah's Sikh community. The Salt Lake Interfaith Roundtable envisions a community and a world, notice that expression, world, where diverse faiths, cultures, and belief systems enjoy mutual respect, understanding, appreciation, acceptance, harmony, and love, close quote. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints hosted the event, presided by a regional church leader, elder, whose name is Bruce Boucher, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a fascinating article, and it just reveals the signs of the times. I mean, the Mormon church, just when you think it couldn't be more theologically messed up. Remember, Mormonism is dealing with the appearance of Jesus here in North America. And it's kind of interesting that Brigham Young University has one of the most prestigious archaeology departments in the world, and they can't find a single archaeological reference of Jesus' appearance, here in North America. By contrast, when you go to the land of the Bible, the land of Israel, there are countless archaeological discoveries. It's a whole field of study. Old Testament archaeology, New Testament archaeology, which over and over again vindicate the biblical record. The Mormons can't produce anything like that. The Mormons basically believe that the Bible is not sufficient. There's these other books, the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, the Doctrine of Covenants. They teach a works-oriented religion. It's a totally different revelation allegedly given to Joseph Smith, a mere teenager. They teach that Jesus and Lucifer are brothers. They deny the Trinity. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just when you thought that the Mormon church couldn't get more theologically messed up, now it opens the door to this whole ecumenical mindset that all religions are right, all religions are true, and we're here to promote global and worldwide harmony. So it becomes just another sign of the times how fast global religiosity is being constructed. Let me take you to this screenshot of Paula White. And all of this information I got from Terry Green's post on X. And there's a picture of Paula White, and it says Paula White Kane spoke at the World Summit 2025, held from April 10th to the 14th. So this just happened last month. And hosted the Universal Peace Foundation, funded by Sun Young Moon's Unification Church. This article reveals several aberrant beliefs that Paula White espoused during this event. This is difficult for me to bring up because Paula White is Donald Trump's appointed, we'll get her title in just a second, faith ambassador or something to that extent. I mean, in the Trump administration, she's over faith and religion, representing his values supposedly in this global summit that she spoke at. And I've been very much on board with the Trump administration's executive orders and a lot of the good that the Trump administration has done. I believe that he continues to be a restraining influence in our world, taking us away from evil, taking us away from globalism, and making strong, healthy, nationalistic decisions through various executive orders. I think Trump's first 100 days have been outstanding in that regard. More on that later. But this stuff here with Paula White and spirituality, this is not good. I mean, this is setting the stage for the global religion of the last days. So here I'm reading from something that was posted on X. Paula White Cain spoke at the summit, the World Summit in 2025, held from April 2nd to 14th and hosted by the Universal Peace Federation, funded by Sun Myung Moon's Unification Church. Here's some of the things that Paula White said at this occasion. I'm reading from a transcript. It says, "Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Michael. Esteemed leaders from all faiths, nations, and backgrounds." So let's take all the faiths of the world and tie them together. She says, "Recently I was appointed," and here's her title, I was appointed to be the senior advisor to President Trump for the White House Faith Office, a newly and historic office that had been established. And of all of the people that Trump could have appointed to this office, she's the last person I would have picked had I been in his position. He appoints someone whose own theology is in question. She's a believer in the prosperity little gods doctrine, meaning I'm the kid of a king, so I'm entitled to a life of prosperity and health if I have enough faith and learn to confess it into reality by accessing verbal laws. A purely corrupted theology, an obvious false teaching. And not only is she all that, but she's an ecumenist where she wants to tie the world's religions together. And she took this opportunity at this event to do that very thing, as indicated by her own words. She says, and many other wonderful things that he has appointed to make sure that people of all faiths are represented. It's one thing to have freedom for all faiths. I'm in favor of that, but she goes beyond that. She's taking all faiths and acting like their own different pathway or portal to God. She says, in just a month and a half, we have had over 1,000 faith leaders in the White House Faith Office for shaping policy, doing diplomacy, an iftar dinner, that's Islamic, and negotiations with religious liberty. She's having an iftar dinner in the White House. She goes on and she says, this year we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, an organization that rose from ashes to champion peace, human rights, and cooperation among nations, now composed of 193 member states. So she's putting a happy face on the United Nations. The United Nations goes back to its leadership, a communist, and how he, post-World War II, created the United Nations. And it's an organization that has become a platform for Marxists, communists, socialists, one-worlders. And it's an organization dominated by the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation that makes ruling after ruling after ruling after ruling against the modern state of Israel. In my opinion, the United States is a wicked, demonic, satanic organization. Why we pay so much of their budget, I think, is wrong, and I think they should be moved out of their meeting place there in New York City. But she's acting like the United Nations is some kind of great thing. She says, let me extend my deepest appreciation to Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon and her late husband, Reverend Sun Young Moon. These are cultists she's praising, who founded the Washington Times and the Peace Federation for their transformative leadership and their dedication to world peace. Paula White goes on and she says, as we look around this room, we can't deny the presence of the divine, of God at work. So God is at work through all of these religions that we're meeting at this particular event. Now here's what I really want to drill down on. She quotes the Bible to support all of this. She says, Jesus prayed in John 17, verse 21, that we may all be one. Dr. Moon, we believe this summit is part of fulfilling that holy prayer. You have reminded us all in this new era to strive towards holiness in harmony with heaven, even as the Bible tells us in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 16, to be holy as I am holy. So she quotes two verses, and I want to briefly talk about these. The first one she quotes to justify this interfaith gathering, including Muslims, is John 17, 20 through 23. So let's take a look at those passages very quickly. This is what Jesus prayed. He said in John 17, in what is known as his high priestly prayer, I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those who believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, even as you, Father, are in me and I am in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. She says in verse 23, or Jesus says in verse 23, I in them, you in me, that they may be perfected in unity, so the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you have loved me. I skip there verse 22, which says, the glory which you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, just as we are one. So what Paula White is saying here is this gathering, this interfaith gathering, using the platform of her new office via the Trump administration, is somehow a fulfillment of John 17, verses 20 through 23. Because after all, Jesus prayed that we would all be one. And I'm here to tell you folks that interpretation of John 17 is about as far removed from what John 17 is actually saying than you can possibly believe. If we put the screenshot of those verses back up, you'll notice that verse 17 precedes John 17, verse 21, where Jesus specifically prayed in this high priestly prayer, sanctify them in the truth, thy word is truth. So it's a unity that he prayed for amongst those who acknowledge the truth. The Reverend Sun Young Moon, the Mormons, all these groups that she had assembled there, the Muslims, they don't acknowledge the truth. So whatever unity they came up with is against John 17, because Jesus prayed that the unity would be built on the foundation of truth. Beyond that, and this is what is missed, and I've heard ecumenists quote this verse from time immemorial. Here's what's missed. This is a prayer of Jesus, not a command to us. It's a prayer of Jesus to the Father. The prayer has already been answered on the day of Pentecost. And that's what I mean by how Paula White and others are abusing the context of this verse. Notice this quote from theologian Louis Sperry Chafer, one of the greats. He writes this concerning John 17, verses 20 through 23. Look at his language here. It's in his Systematic Theology, Volume 5, page 158. He says, thoughtless and absurd. In other words, what Paula White here is doing is an absurdity. Is the modern notion that Christ was praying that denominations which exist in this remote time and in a country then unknown what might become organically united into one. And therefore it is the duty of all sects to unite and thus to help to answer this prayer. As indicated before, this unity is sought at the hand of the Father, indicating that it is a divine undertaking. This is not a command for us. This is a prayer to the Father. And even the context of it is a prayer within those that acknowledge the truth, not between, let's say, a Bible-believing Christian and someone that's outside of the truth, like a Muslim. Chafer continues on and he says, it is that, and it results in a unity as organic and vital as that between the Father and the Son. This prayer began to be answered on the day of Pentecost, when believers were, by the Spirit, baptized into one body, and is constantly answered whenever a soul is saved and thus joined as a member of the body of Christ by the same baptism of the Spirit, close quote. This is not an injunction for what we as ecumenists are supposed to do to please God, allegedly. This is a prayer by Jesus to the Father that already got answered in Acts 2 when the baptizing ministry of the Holy Spirit started. And at every conversion, the Holy Spirit took men and women and connected them to Christ's body as a positional truth. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 13, if you're looking for the key passage on it. So when you understand this context, you understand that Paula White is completely abusing John 17, verse 21, as is every single ecumenist that uses this verse for the ecumenical agenda. It's a prayer request that's already been answered, number one. And number two, Jesus was speaking of a platform of truth that the unity is to occur within. You notice, and let's get Acts 4:12 ready. You'll notice that she quotes 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 15 and 16, thinking that her event is of somehow a fulfillment of that. It's interesting how selective she is with the teachings of the Apostle Peter. She never quotes Acts 4:12, where Luke records Peter as saying, "And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must be saved." Must be saved. Study that out in Greek. It's something that's absolutely 100% essential. You must be saved by faith alone, through grace alone, on the name of Jesus Christ alone. These other movements are not doing that. So her use of 1 Peter is highly selective. Back to the article, she goes on and she says, I am reminded of miracles every single day, that with God all things are possible. I've had the blessing of being with Mother Moon on many different occasions, and I want to thank her for her courageous and undaunting faith. Dr. Moon, I believe in your calling and your assignment from heaven. She goes on and says, religious leaders are chosen by God to lead the way, not just in church or in your temple or synagogue or mosque. So religious leaders within a mosque are chosen by God, she's saying. But in the family and in the public sector, you are appointed to bring healing. Dr. Moon, occultist, you are a testimony to this. Wow. I mean, who would have thought within a Republican conservative administration you'd get this kind of preparation for global religion? I don't know if the situation would be any better in this regard if Kamala Harris had won the election. It would probably be worse. She had her own pastor that was steeped in critical race theory, a Reverend Wright, Jeremiah Wright type of figure. But boy, Satan always has a back door. And no matter what good an administration may be doing, there's some negative that we have to be intellectually honest about. One of those things is this Paula White ecumenical mindset preparatory for world religion. You know, the Pope who passed away recently, we're getting a lot of news articles about the Pope who passed away, and now we have a new Pope. The prior Pope talked this way all the time. You might remember we covered on our show, he used the example of languages. Just as we all have different languages, I mean, we're all basically human beings and communicating the same stuff, although we do it differently. He kind of used that as an example of, you know, all religions lead the same to the same path. And now that we have a new Pope, his name is Robert Prevost, if I'm pronouncing that name right. Everybody's saying, well, this Pope is going to be more conservative. Are you sure about that? Here's a couple of screenshots of that Pope before he was the Pope criticizing J.D. Vance and arguing, it looks like, for a borderless world, which is right out of the playbook of the New World Order. This says Pope Francis letter, J.D. Vance's Ordo Amoris, Order of Love, in other words, and what the gospel asks of all of us on immigration. He doesn't like what J.D. Vance believes, J.D. Vance, a Catholic, what he believes on this issue of immigration. So it looks to me like just more of the same stuff now that this individual is the new Pope. Here's another screenshot from Robert Prevost. J.D. Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. Vance, was making a point that you can't, take the brethren in the sheep and goat judgment and just sort of willy-nilly apply that to illegal immigrants. That's not what the Bible's talking about. And of course the Pope, before he was the Pope, was against that. Now that he is the Pope, he continues to be against that. So it looks to me just like more of the same. I mean, maybe this new Pope has some conservative elements or aspects that the other prior Pope didn't have, but to me it looks just like the same gift, if I can use that expression, with different wrapping paper. I mean, it's just the same candy bar. It's just been wrapped a little bit different. And I expect the papacy to be used like it was used under the prior Pope, to put some kind of spiritual or Christian veneer on the agenda of the New World Order. That has to happen because there has to be an economic angle, a political angle, and a spiritual angle to the coming New World Order. Let's move away from global religion and let's conclude here with our last category, which is the decline of the United States of America. Here's a map that we use many times to describe end times events. It mentions key players, but the United States of America is not found there. So one of the great issues amongst prophecy watchers is what in the world happened to the United States of America. Some would argue that the rapture would decimate our country. Others would argue that the United States of America would simply move into decline and not be able to flex a lot of muscle on the world stage when the end time scenario rolls around and comes into existence. I'm sort of the view that the United States of America, for that reason, is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. It's a nation in decline. We in this country perpetually and continually attack the very things that gave this country greatness. And one of the things that's happening right now is a constitutional crisis. We are right now in the midst of a constitutional crisis. Most Americans don't see it as such, but that's exactly what's going on. Notice this screenshot from Trump administration member Stephen Miller. He writes, quote, "The Democrats appointed communist judges in a handful of America's most liberal cities. Those unelected communist judges are now trying to rule over us all and invalidate the 2024 electoral landslide." And what's happening is these very low-level judges, district judges, for example, in parts of the country that are very blue, that aren't elected by anybody. It was Schumer that we used the quote a couple of shows ago, boasted that we've got 235 of these judges and they're going to stop the Trump agenda. So the American people gave Trump a mandate, which is very positive for the direction of our country. And here come a bunch of low-level judges putting handcuffs on the Trump administration, preventing the Trump administration from fulfilling its basic constitutional executive functions, like controlling our spending, like reducing the size and the scope of government, like getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse within our government, like getting people out of this country that are not just illegals, but illegal criminals. At every turn, here come these judges at the federal level telling the Trump administration, no, you're doing something unconstitutional. So notice this particular article from ABC News. It's got a little bit of a liberal bias. But the title of it, and this is dated April 29th, 2025, it says 220 lawsuits in 100 days. The Trump administration faces an unprecedented legal blitz. The administration has been sued over nearly every element of Trump's agenda. I mean, you want to talk about the first 100 days of the Trump administration and the good things it's brought? Well, throw into the mix, during that brief time period, 220 lawsuits have been filed against the Trump administration. The article says, since Donald Trump took office 100 days ago, the president and his administration have faced an average of more than 2 lawsuits per day, challenging nearly every element of his agenda. This breakneck pace of the president's policies has been matched in nearly equal force by a flood of litigation. At least 220 lawsuits in courts across the country challenging more than 24 executive orders, the firing of 20 high-ranking government officials, and dozens of other executive actions. While the Trump administration has had some victories in the courts, federal judges have blocked key parts of Trump's agenda, ranging from parts of his immigration policy and military guidelines to his effort to roll back diversity, equity, and initiatives. Now keep in mind that Trump is in the position he's in because he won the popular vote and he won a landslide in the Electoral College. So these judges are not thwarting just the Trump administration, they're thwarting the voice of the American people. The article says the suits have come at a steady clip. 20 in January, approximately 70 in both February and March, and about 50 in April as the Trump administration has rolled out new policies. Approximately 60 of those cases have focused on President Trump's immigration policy, with courts so far blocking the president's attempt to remove birthright citizenship, withholding funding from sanctuary cities, removing non-citizens to countries other than their place of origin with little or no due process, and strip thousands of their temporary protected status. Some of these policies have earned the president rebukes from judges questioning the rationale for his unilateral immigration policy. So apparently, as Trump exports these international illegal criminals, they're saying, well, they haven't been afforded due process. Can I ask you a basic question? When they came into this country illegally, did they respect due process? So let me get this straight. It's okay for them to violate due process coming in. You can violate that due process, but the process of getting them out is somehow runs afoul of due process. I mean, that makes no logical sense whatsoever. It says this: the courts have also blocked the Trump administration from effectively banning transgender people from military service, limiting gender-affirming care, requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote, attempting to block or attempting to freeze trillions of dollars in funding to states and nonprofits, and moving to block billions in aid. These are common sense things that Trump wants to do, that the American people want him to do. In fact, this is something that he was elected to do in a landslide. And as he's doing these very common sense things for the good of the country, here comes the judicial system saying no, 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 no. That's a constitutional crisis. I mean, Trump has every right to do these things based on the powers that the Constitution gives him as the chief executive of the land. And yet all of these judges appointed by liberal presidents for life are putting handcuffs on the Trump administration. I think this is a constitutional crisis. The article says, but the seemingly constant conflict between the Trump administration and the judiciary could risk, look at this, permanent damage in the separation of powers at the heart of the Constitution. Some damages have warned. This is why I have included this in the Decline of America, because this article is talking about permanent constitutional damage in our separation of powers doctrine. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, who heard arguments over the deportation of 2 plane loads of alleged migrant gang members to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act, an 18th century wartime authority used to remove non-citizens with little to no due process, ultimately determined the Trump administration likely violated his order by failing to return the migrants to the United States. Let's get the terrorists who are here illegally out of here. Oh, can't do that. Violated due process. And when they say violate due process, what they're saying is all of these illegals should be given some kind of, hearing before a judge, when there's not even enough judges in the country to give these individuals the hearing. And so essentially what they're saying is, Mr. Trump, you can't do anything. They're putting upon him and his administration, the executive branch, an impossible standard that no one can meet. They're using the excuse that this Alien Enemies Act is from the 18th century. Well, so what? A law is still a law. We follow the Constitution, as Tom Homan said, even though the Constitution predates the Alien Enemies Act. Lawyers representing the Trump administration have argued that Judge Boasberg's order fell outside his jurisdiction because the flights in question had left U.S. airspace, and have insisted that a federal judge should not dictate U.S. foreign policy. The Trump administration has also faced challenges from its refusal to facilitate the return of a man named Garcia, a Salvadorian native living in Maryland, to the United States after he was mistakenly deported to his home country despite an order barring his deportation there due to fear of persecution. Those appeals have led to some losses for the Trump administration, among them a 5-4 Supreme Court decision ordering the Trump administration to unfreeze nearly $2 billion in foreign aid and funds for work that aid groups have already completed on the government's behalf. Over the next month, the Supreme Court is said to hold oral arguments for the first time in a lawsuit challenging the Trump administration's attempt to eliminate birthright citizenship as guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, which confers American citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil, regardless of their parents' immigration citizenship status. That's why I told you a little earlier that this article is written from the liberal perspective, because the 14th Amendment has no such guarantee in it. The 14th Amendment was designed to give rights to recently emancipated slaves following the Civil War. It has zero, and I mean zero, to do with children of illegal immigrants being given an automatic right or path to citizenship. The Trump administration also asked the Supreme Court to take up a legal challenge to the Pentagon's transgender service ban after 3 judges blocked it from taking effect. Despite President Trump's vow to restore free speech and end censorship, his administration has forced multiple lawsuits challenging his actions on the grounds that they violate the First Amendment. 4 law firms have sued the Trump administration after they were targeted for their past work, with each firm arguing the Trump administration unlawfully retaliated against them and violated their First Amendment rights. Judges have temporarily blocked the Trump administration from targeting, and it names here a bunch of law firms. They complained, saying the framers of our Constitution would see this as a shocking abuse of power, according to U.S. District Judge Ali Khan, and regarding the order targeting one of these law firms. Let me tell you a little something about these law firms. These are the very people engaged in lawfare against the President of the United States, trying to prevent him from becoming President of the United States the first time around and the second time around. That's the law firms that he's targeting. And they're trying to couch this as some kind of great stand for free speech. And unfortunately, these lower level judges are agreeing with the law firms. After the Trump administration attempted to freeze more than $2 billion in funding for Harvard University, the country's oldest school, cited the First Amendment in their lawsuit challenging the funding freeze, arguing the threat of additional funding cuts will chill Harvard's exercise of their First Amendment rights. What a lie. Yeah, you have a First Amendment right, Harvard, but you don't have a First Amendment right to have it subsidized, particularly when you're promoting anti-Semitic agendas and ideologies. Harvard University will be unable to make decisions. This is Harvard complaining. By the way, did you know that Harvard has like a multi-billion-dollar endowment? I mean, why do these people need government money at all is beyond me. Harvard will be able to make decisions regarding, unable to make decisions regarding its faculty hiring, academic programs, student admissions, and other core academic matters without fear that those will run afoul of government censors' views on acceptable levels of ideological or viewpoint diversity on campus. The Trump administration also invoked a rarely used law to justify removing non-citizens, such as Khalil, a legal permanent resident who was a prominent figure during student protests at Columbia because he and others allegedly harm U.S. foreign policy. So here's a guy that's let into the country. He's given all of the privileges to study in our country, and he uses his time to stoke anti-Semitism and violence on campus, and the Trump administration wants to deport him, and the judicial system comes in and says you can't do that. It's a constitutional crisis. The Trump administration, the student complained, is targeting me as part of a broader strategy to suppress dissent, he wrote in a public letter last month from an ICE detention facility in Louisiana. Oh, we're being persecuted because of free speech. Well, you don't have free speech to come into this country and then use your freedom to stoke violence and anti-Semitism. Sorry, we didn't sign up for that when we let you in. So please go back home. Oh, my free speech is being taken away, and here come all of these lower court judges agreeing with him and not the Trump administration. By the way, a lot of these decisions that are kneecapping the Trump administration come from district courts. That's the lowest level of the federal system. From names and people we've never heard of before. What does the word district court mean to you? It means you handle issues within your district, right? It doesn't give you some kind of right for a nationwide ban on the executive branch. And so there's an obvious abuse of power going on here. By the way, judges' rulings are called opinions. What does the word opinion mean to you? It's their perspective on why they think the Constitution is being violated. An opinion doesn't give you some sort of legal right to enforce a law. That's what these courts are doing, and they're taking power away from the legislative branch in the process. And the judges, even the conservative ones on TV that you think would understand this, don't seem to get it. Look at this article here from Mediaite.com, April 28th, 2025, and it concerns Newsmax legal analyst Andrew Napolitano, who calls out the Trump administration for arresting a Wisconsin judge. They're on a bit of a jihad, he says. Newsmax legal analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano sharply criticized the Trump administration on Monday over the arrest of a sitting Wisconsin judge late last week. Now, Napolitano is interesting. He's a limited government guy. He usually is very good with the things he says, but boy, he sure misses the point here. He was referring to the migrant who authorities tried to arrest at a courthouse and now claim that the Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan helped escape. But because they're on a bit of a jihad against judges, they decided to make an example of this, Napolitano said. I think this is the wrong case out of which to make an example. So as you followed this in the news, you might remember that this particular Wisconsin judge had an illegal in her courtroom, and she provided a way of escape for that illegal, so the illegal would not get arrested by the Trump-controlled ICE group. And so what she did is she aided and abetted a fugitive from justice. So Pam Bondi and the Trump administration comes in and they says, okay, you judge in Wisconsin, you did this, we're going to put you under arrest. So what does Andrew Napolitano say, a supposedly conservative commentator on Newsmax? He takes the side of the judge that aided and abetted the escape and doesn't take the side of the Trump administration who had the power to arrest that judge based on their own executive role. And this is the kind of constitutional crisis, whether it's from commentators or district court judges, that we're seeing now over and over again. One other quick article before we conclude here, and it's from townhall.com, May 5th, 2025. It says, Judge Boasberg keeps getting assigned Trump cases, and the lawmakers want to know why. Now, this Judge Boasberg is one of the biggest Trump haters in the United States judiciary. He's actually conflicted in the cases that he resolves, because a lot of them, like stopping Trump trying to stop abuse in funding was benefiting his own family members. So he should have recused himself. And yet in this particular district court, he keeps getting the Trump cases. He keeps getting the cases over and over again, this Trump hater, that could injure the Trump administration. Why does he keep getting these cases? Why aren't they ferreted out to other judges? Well, we've got some congressmen that want to know why. That's what this article is about. Judge James Boasberg, the Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, has been repeatedly assigned cases to do with President Donald Trump's second term, as Town Hall has been covering. Congress has taken notice, and the White House last month passed a bill to rein in rogue judges like Boasberg. Questions still remain, though, and on Monday, Town Hall obtained a letter from Reps Jim Jordan, Darrell Issa, and Chip Roy regarding such concerns. The letter was sent to Angela Caesar, the clerk of the court for the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. As the letter begins in part by mentioning the second Trump term has been hit by over 30 nationwide injunctions, with the term having just over 100 days. The letter says many of these nationwide injunctions have raised concerns that Article 3 judges are exceeding their constitutional authority by replacing the policy decisions of the duly elected president with their own preferences, eroding public trust and integrity in the fairness of the system. Among the cases Boasberg has been assigned include not only the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act for deportations, but also with the administration's handling of the Signal app. The letter shows that Boasberg was assigned such high-profile cases less than 2 weeks apart. He was also assigned cases that had to do with the Department of Government of Efficiency and federal funding of programs that violate civil rights laws. While the latter was dismissed, this was due to the plaintiff's request. And the letter simply asks that what is happening is there has been to effectuate even distribution of cases amongst the judges. Why does the biggest Trump hater in the country keep getting all of the cases in this Columbia District Court that are high-profile cases that could injure the Trump administration? The end of the article says the congressman requests of Caesar the following information from the cases of, and it lists all these cases. And here's what the letter asks them to do. And we have a screenshot of this. Number 1, describe the process by which the presiding judge was assigned to the case, including the date of assignment and the method used. Number 2, describe any deviations in the process for assigning this case compared to the standard assignment process. Number 3, state the number of cards each judge had already drawn from the relevant assignment deck when the case was assigned. Number 4, state the number of cards each judge had remaining in the relevant assignment deck with the case when the case was assigned. Number 5, provide the number of judges who were eligible for assignment to the case when it was assigned. Is this process where Boasberg keeps getting all the Trump cases, is this a fair process or not? That's what the 3 congressmen are trying to determine. It says the members request that the material be submitted no later than May 19th. All 3 members are part of the House Judiciary Committee, with Jordan serving as the chairman and Roy and Issa also serving as chairman of subcommittees. And by the way, Congress has every right to look into this, because these lower courts wouldn't even exist if it weren't for Congress. And Congress, through a simple majority vote, House and Senate, I believe, could take these courts and abolish them. The only court that's mentioned in the Constitution is the Supreme Court of the United States. So a lot of legal ease here, but I want to make you aware of this because we are really in a constitutional crisis in this country, where what our founding fathers designed for our separation of powers is way out of whack. And this may be the very thing that brings America down and causes her to be absent when the prophetic scenario materializes. So with all of that being said, here's our review slide for today. We dealt with Mark of the Beast technology, global religion, and the decline of the United States of America. Of course, we like to leave with a note of hope. Titus 2:13 says, looking for the blessed hope in the appearing of the glory and our great God and Savior Christ Jesus. In the midst of a lot of this bad news, there's the good news of the soon coming rapture of the church, or God's promise to take us from the earth before the wrath of God hits planet Earth. You can be tied into that promise simply by placing your personal faith and trust for your salvation and the safekeeping of your soul and the forgiveness of your sins into the finished work of Jesus Christ. I hope and pray many people within the sound of my voice are doing that now. You can follow us on our app. Go to the App Store, type in Andy Woods Ministries, and get all of our content on our free app. People that use it and know about it, rave about it. It's all for free, right there at your fingertips. If you want to follow Pastor's Point of View in podcast format, just type in Andy Woods Ministries into your podcast search engine, and you'll have an opportunity to enjoy these shows in podcast format. We have a website with all of our content constantly being uploaded onto it as well, andywoodsministries.org, and on the homepage there's a conspicuous way to sign up for our show notes. What I read from will show up in your inbox virtually every Friday morning once we post a new Pastor's Point of View show. I am the president of a school, Chafer Theological Seminary. If you're interested in seminary education, go to chafer.edu. As you go there, and also to our website, you'll find that there's an opportunity to download a free copy of our latest academic journal named Pneumaticos, dealing with key issues that we seek to embrace and defend at Chafer Theological Seminary. Now is a great time to take a summer course. The summer term begins June 2nd. Registration takes place from May 19th through the 30th. There's our offering for the summer. Great courses, great professors designed to make you better wherever it is you're ministering. And so if you have an interest in this, I would encourage you to take a summer class or classes. This is a great educational opportunity, and there is the latest related to registration, class offerings, and sign-ups and for the summer term. Very excited to announce this. Announced it on our last show, but I want to invite people's attention to www.profcon.com. And as you go there, you'll see our layout for our February 20th and 21st, 2026, 5th Annual Sugarland Bible Church Prophecy Conference. Our conference has gotten so popular that we've expanded it to all day Friday and all day Saturday. The banquet will be held on the same location Saturday evening. As this time around, we are renting out a major ballroom, huge ballroom at the Marriott of Sugarland. The conference will not be here at the church. It will be at the Sugarland Marriott Sunday morning, what would that be, the 22nd? We would invite people to sort of stick around and come to our regular church services on Sunday morning, where our conference speakers will be presenting as well. But the conference is all day Friday, all day Saturday, Saturday evening banquet. We went this direction because we don't want to say no to anybody. And so if you go to www.profcon.com, you'll see a layout of everything you need to know. Very professionally done. Where to get lodging at the Marriott if you choose to stay there, restaurants. I mean, virtually every question is answered there. And we invite you to come to this conference. The subject matter will be Last Days Discernment, something that's very needed. Our special group, Olam Worship, will be leading worship at this conference. And we had them at our last conference. They were very popular. One of our homegrown contemporary worship bands, and they'll be involved in the conference coming up in 2026. Here's our speakers: Olivier Melnick, who you know is going to deal with the anti-Semitism issue. Russ Miller, who you're familiar with, is going to be dealing with the creationism issue. And then Alex Newman will be presenting. This is our first time having Alex Newman. He is one of the great students of the progress of the New World Order, and he'll bring us up to speed on that. We have Dr. Paul Wilkinson, one of the great experts in the world concerning John Nelson Darby and the unfortunate advent of supersessionism, replacement theology, Christian Palestinianism into our churches. He'll be exposing and equipping in that regard. We also have coming Patrick Wood, who is a leading expert on the development of the Mark of the Beast system that we see coming into existence. And then I'll be one of the speakers as well. It's going to be a fantastic time. So go to profcon.com to get the full information and opportunities for registration. I want to make you aware of my book that's been out for a little while now, called The Bible in Your Vote, Teaching Christians How to Vote Biblically. I was very excited that one of our candidates for mayor has a copy of the book and is in the process of reading it, if he hasn't read it already. And he posted my book with his picture there on Facebook saying, "Thank you, Dr. Andy Woods," which reminds me, right here in the Sugar Land area, we're in the middle of a critical runoff election. We vote and get the opportunity to vote once again June 7th, which is a Saturday, I believe, 2025. Early voting starts May the 27th and goes through June 3rd. So isn't it wonderful to live in a country where we can actually have some kind of say on the direction of our leadership? You don't have that in Iran. You don't have that in Saudi Arabia. You don't have that in Cuba. You don't have that in Russia, but we have it here. So take full advantage of our electoral process. That's all I have for today on Pastor's Point of View. God bless you, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this broadcast. God bless you.